Yo, what is up, guys? It's Bones back again. And for today's video, I want to go over something that's very, very important. I think has really helped not only my trading, but just being consistent, seeing certain things, and that is candles and patterns. I use candles and patterns almost every day. I've been trading QQQ a ton recently using that orb strat, but more importantly, basing it off of patterns and candles once we get more intraday. And the reason that, candles and patterns work is because of psychology. The market moves off of our psychology, buyers and sellers, and that's why candles work, because they show where sellers step in, where buyers step in, and the patterns show, where people are selling, where people are taking profit, where more buyers are stepping in. So it helps us to make a better entry into plays, as there is more when we have a nice candlestick pattern. I'll talk about those candlesticks, what patterns I use, what types of candlesticks, and also overall patterns in a ticker, intraday versus daily, stuff like that. And then also the importance of volume when it comes to types of candles. If trading, options, stuff like that is important, or something that helps you want to know more about, go ahead, hit the like, the subscribe button. It just helps the YouTube algorithm. All right, so first thing first, the anatomy of a candle or candlestick. So basically, we just have the body, which is the color red or green. The top of it will be the opening price. The long side of the wick will be the high price. The bottom side of the low price, or the lower wick, and then the bottom of that body will be the closing price. This lower part will be a lower shadow or a lower wick. The upper part will be, the upper shower or the upper wick. And basically all this does is shows us, the psychology of buyers and sellers, where they're stepping in, where they're getting out, and it helps make that better decision, as I talked about earlier. I use this sheet right here to kind of have a better understanding, or where to look when it comes to patterns. Most of the time I focus on 3 simple candlesticks though, because I found that they help me the most, and it also helps me not to overlook things that I don't really care all that much about. The first of those being, and one of my favorite, is hammer candles. So a hammer candle right here is a long lower wick at the bottom of a downtrend, and this is a potential for an upside trend. I love hammer candles at key levels, as it shows the buyers have stepped in, defended this level very heavy. So I'm very confident and have high conviction when entering into a play where a candlestick drops below the level but closes back above as buyers push that level up. That is one of my favorite ways to enter into calls. On the inverse side, a hammer candle at the top of an uptrend coming up upon resistance is bearish. Hangman candle, it's one that I don't look for as much in entering into puts, but it is one to keep in mind, as not all hammer candles are bullish. It depends where they are at. Same thing with any type of candle. It depends where they're at on the chart, and they're more important at higher time intervals as well as at key levels. So say we have a trigger, right? We want to see what type of candle it is at that level before entering into a play, as that adds conviction. This has really helped me a lot in terms of becoming profitable, is really understanding, what type of candle it is and why I'm entering upon that candle. Next, we have, probably my favorite candle to enter into, which would be a bullish engulfing or a bearish engulfing. And these are the highest momentum candles there are. It shows that buyers have pushed the price all the way up to the top, the entire amount of the candle. Bearish sellers have pushed the price all the way down. This is the highest momentum candle there is, so it is either the most bearish or most bullish candle. And then lastly, my favorite entry point for puts would be these long upper wick candles or shooting stars. They don't necessarily have to be a shooting star in all cases, but when looking to enter into puts, I love using the long upper wick candles at the top of a uptrend to enter in, as it shows that, sellers are stepping in, people are taking profits. So this is a good risk to reward scenario in terms of entering into a put position. Now, being able to look at a cheat sheet's cool and all, but actually being able to trade or understand these candles takes time, it takes practice. And my favorite way to do it is simply just using QQQ or SPY. I've been a big fan of QQQ recently, but being able to identify these can help a lot. In this case, we do have a daily hammer candle here on QQQ. You can see the long lower wick bouncing on this POC, nice volume node here on the daily. But the interesting thing to me is the weekly on QQQ is a shooting star that could not hold that 370 level, very big level. So to me, the upper or the higher time frame always supersedes, but this is interesting to me. I'm really curious as to see, how is the market going to respond on Monday? On the weekly time frame, we have a pretty ugly candle. On the daily, it's a pretty bullish candle. So the importance of that, we'll see how price action responds. But right now, myself, I'm a little bit confused. Right now, when it comes to, identifying candles, let's use BABA actually. And this is the importance of, identifying candles and key levels. So in this case, I use this orb method here on BABA as we had about an 8% gap up overnight. So my triggers became 115.31 and 118.94. And this candle right here, I was actually looking to enter into puts, completely honest with you. And then about a minute before close of this 5-minute candle, it hammered back up, closed right above the level. So we could have got a short-term bounce back up. As you can see, this candle here is a bearish engulfing candle, or an outside candle if you're more familiar with the strat. So it's a long upper wick. Sellers push it down pretty heavy, decent volume down here. So, that's where I would have exited. Wouldn't have been a great play. But that's the importance of hammer candles, types of candles at key levels, right? Now, flipping back to QQQ, as we can see, this is the hourly chart. So this hourly candle is going to mean more than does a 5-minute candle. But as we can see, we had a hangman here, which really started this downtrend, and then this bearish engulfing. This shows, sellers are in control. Cool. That's something to take note of, as this can start a possible downtrend. In this case, hanging man, then an hourly bearish engulfing candle. Sellers are in control. Perfect. Notice there, and then this last hourly candle here on QQQ is a bullish engulfing candle, pretty decent volume. So that's one thing to note. We also have this trend line, which I'll talk about patterns here in a second. If we can break above that trend line, you're targeting 366, 368, and 370. But that's how I really use candles. They're way more important at key levels, and they just really show the overall psychology of buyers and sellers, which is what the market is based off of. And the very, very hardest part of trading is controlling your emotions. But learning and understanding candle types can go a long way in understanding, what market makers think, what others think, and where that buying and selling pressure is going to come into. When it comes to patterns, this is the downtrend I was talking about here on QQQ. As you notice, we're still forming lower highs, lower lows. We do have that bullish engulfing hourly candle at a very key node here, about 359. So I will be watching that. In terms of an entry here, I'm looking for over, this is a big one here, 363.6 it looks like. But I'm going to use this 5-minute and show you how I really use these patterns intraday. So looking at this here, for QQQ, one of my favorite ways to play is that orb method, high and low, the first 15 or the first 3 5-minute candles. So the low is 361.77, high 363.6. So if you notice here, we have this bottom trend line start to get into effect. I was actually messing around a little bit on QQQ earlier in the day. I was looking at BABA and didn't really notice anything. And then I started looking about this candle here, and I was looking for calls, to be completely honest with you. looked decently bullish, looks like we're consolidating, and then we have this long candle, very bearish, and then we close below our level, below trend line. This adds a lot of conviction here. We close below that trend line. First target is going to be the bottom of the consolidation zone, so 360.65 to 360.5 in this case. Cool, we hit that easy. We get a little bit more of a push, but I get my profits locked in. It's a Friday, don't want to risk those 0 DTEs. Next up, this descending wedge here on the 5-minute. I didn't really notice it at first. I thought it was more of a trend line breakout earlier. And then once we started consolidating, started getting tight, I realized, oh shit, this is a descending wedge, right? So in this case, my entry would be a close over trend line, back over that 359 reclaim. We get a very big bullish candle here. Decent spot for an entry. Could have possibly waited on this pullback, but I would have personally looked for 359.25 area in terms of a pullback entry. If you missed that there, so what, But in terms of our targets, first target is going to be back at that 360.65. We hit it to the cent here. Perfect time to scale out. Awesome, right? And then next, this is how we use those types of candles. Long upper wicks on these two in particular. This one starts to get a little bit longer. And we're starting to fade up. Can't really hold that 361.2 level. Fall through, get this trend line. And then we get this absolutely massive burst through pattern at the end of the day, forming that long bullish engulfing on the hourly. So that's how I really use, patterns, candlesticks, as a way to understand what others are thinking when it comes to the market. As I said, QQQ has been one of my favorite things to trade. There's great premiums, moves pretty fast, and it respects these these levels, these patterns very, very well. So that's one way I use it. I use it more intraday, later in the day once a trend is set up for that intraday in terms of patterns. But candlesticks, I like to use those right off the bat as they are more important at those key levels, at those triggers that we had established the day before.